Okay, welcome everyone. It's Friday afternoon here in beautiful Judea, Israel, in the Gush Etzion block, we'll call it. And we are about to discuss a double whammy this week. We're in Acharei Kedoshim, two different Parshat. I'm just going to wait for a couple people to get online here so I can see who's in. And as soon as you do check in, let me know that you're here so I can give you a shout out. We got Josh is in. Josh, Simon, how you doing, Josh? What's going on? Deborah is here. How you doing? John is here. So everyone who's showing up, I appreciate you all coming here. Number one, invite your friends in. We have some pretty, thanks Nan, Shabbat Shalom, right back at you. We got some pretty interesting points we're going to talk about. You know, a lot of people read the Torah. For those who don't read Hebrew, you read it translated. But, you know, there are two levels of understanding languages. There's the verbal. In other words, when I see the word orange, right? So you either think of an orange, the color orange, the orange juice, and you think of the verbal meaning, but you don't really get the emotional intelligence that's involved in that word. And if one is changing the language, you can never get the full, emotional understanding of the word if you are just translating verbally. So I'm just gonna, there you go. So again, I'm just going to wait for a couple more people to come on. And everyone who's on, welcome. And I appreciate if you would please invite other people on. Let me just go and invite the people who asked to be invited here. Give me a second. And then I'm going to show you something really cool. Something that I had for Yom Ha'atzmaut, for Israel Independence Day, which I actually love that I got. I'm sorry, I'm leaning over and inviting people. Give me a sec. And for those of you who are on, we're going to be discussing a couple of things today. First, we're going to be discussing what does it mean to live according to the Torah? What does life mean according to the Torah? Number two is it says this week's Parshat, the second of Kedoshim Tihiyu, right? You have to be kadosh. Question is, what is that word kadosh, right? It's translated literally as holy. But if I ask you what does holy mean, it doesn't help me because holy is just another word. So you actually didn't tell me what it means. You just translate it into another language, which is wonderful. I want to know what it means, and I want to know what is the meaning between that idea of Kedoshim Tihiyu. What is our responsibility when it says Kedoshim Tihiyu? Of course, we have the famous Shabbat Shalom, Sari, how you doing? We have the famous, of course, quote in this week's Parshat, V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, love your neighbor like you love yourself. We have to understand also what that means, right? It doesn't mean that people are evil, you have to love their action and hug them because they're evil. And where does that begin? Where does it end? Before I get started here, I just want to let everyone know, those who are watching, mid-June, I will be in North America for a speaking tour about Israel, current events in Israel, what's going on, politics and whatnot, as well as a fundraising tour for Standing Together. We have some major IDF projects coming up, and they're actually being done in memory and honor of fallen soldiers. I'm still looking for people to help me set up events in their communities and areas, as well as people if you want to host. So everyone watching here, I want you to step up to bat and let me know if you want to do that. I also will put in right here before I get started, then we're really going to get started right now. Give me 1 second. Boom. There we go. There is a really cool campaign that I just put up. Come in, ladies, come in. The guests are here. Sorry. So there was actually a really cool campaign that we just put up, which basically is we're working with a store, a cafe store, where soldiers in uniform can go in and they eat and drink, have a cup of coffee and some cake for free. All right, let's get started. We have a double whammy this week. It's Acharei Kedoshim. And again, the questions we're asking is, what does it mean, Kedoshim Tihiyu? What does it mean? What does that word Kedusha mean? Ladies, hi, welcome. Hi. My guests, should I turn around?
No.
Everyone, okay, 1 second. Hello? Okay, the guests have arrived for Shabbat. Okay, so let's talk for a second. I want to go through the parshas here. So number one, we have the first thing. It says here the following. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I am your God, Elohechem, whatever that means. Right? And that's the end of the pasuk. What is that telling us? Right? When it says, tell Bnei Israel, tell the nation of Israel, Ani Hashem Elohechem, I am Hashem. We don't say, by the way, the reason we say Hashem is not because that's God's name, but it's instead of actually saying God's name, which we're not supposed to say God's name in vain or just continuously saying it for no reason. So therefore, what Jews do, instead of saying the word Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the real name of God, we just say the word Hashem, the name, in order not to say the real name. So it says, Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am your, I'll translate it lightly, God, Elokechem. What does it mean? What does that word Elokechem mean? Your king, your ruler. And why is that a pasuk? What is it telling us? When it says Ani Hashem Elokechem, what is the message there? So the message of Ani Hashem Elokechem, the idea is that is the source of all knowledge and morality. In other words, we say every morning in Tefillah, we say Atachonen Adam, that you give man knowledge, right? And at the end we say we want the knowledge to come only from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, only from Hashem. Why is that important? We have freedom of thought. We have freedom of choice, right? We can believe in whatever we want to believe in. People believe in some crazy things. So what does it mean that God should give us from Him the knowledge and the ability to learn things from within things and to have conclusions? Why from God? And the reason for that is because ideologies, political opinions, philosophy, and all a long strand of belief systems can be made up. And society can flip from one end to the other end within a span of 50 years. And again, legalities of a community or of a society does not in any way or form define morality. Again, if I want to go to the extreme, right? If you're going to tell me that your society defines your morality, well, then you have to accept all society's rules and laws as moral. In other words, if morality is defined by the definition of society, then whatever society you happen to be in or even look at, right? I cannot judge, for example, 1942, the Nazis. Their society said Jews are subhuman, Gypsies are subhuman, cripples are subhuman, to burn, kill, and whatever it is, because they're subhuman, and there's no moral problem with murdering these people. Now, if society defines morality, well, we can't judge anyone who behaved according to society's laws. Of course, according to Judaism, we believe that every man, woman, and child, over the age of 13, obviously, because under that it's the parents' responsibility, has a moral responsibility to check themselves. Is what I'm doing right or wrong? The problem with that is, how do you know what right and wrong is? What is the definition of right and wrong? This week, I had a small debate with someone in the TV station that I'm in. Often we have philosophical and ideological debates, and they're yelling at me that how dare I kill animals? It's so cruel to kill animals, so cruel to eat animals, to wear leather, etc., etc., etc. So I turned to her and I said, listen, your ideas and your ideologies are very nice. I have one question for you. How do you know? How do you know? You're saying, don't you feel it? How cruel are you to animals? Feelings don't mean anything per se. Again, we have to be nice to people. That's true. But because I feel that this is wrong or mean or whatever you want to define it as, doesn't mean it is. Okay? Again, the fact that I might feel pain, okay, an animal might feel pain, doesn't make us equal. Because, hey, I'm not sure you have humans on leashes, right? It's terrible. How can you have a human on a leash? So how could you have a dog on a leash? Right? I mean, we should have wild animals walking in the streets. After all, they're equal to humans. Of course, I'm getting extreme on purpose, but you understand that the bottom line of morality is not the same for man and animal, number one. And number two, no, animals are not equal to humans. According to Judaism, animals are here for our consumption. You're not allowed to hunt and hurt them without any reason of consumption. You're not allowed to cause them pain. It is one of the seven, every minachai you're allowed to eat from a limb of a live animal. You're not allowed to hurt or injure animals just for sport. That's absolutely not allowed to Judaism. But she wasn't going on that. She was saying it's absolutely immoral to eat meat. And I said to her, how do you know that? She said, what do you mean, how do I know that? I don't need the Bible, the Torah, to tell me it's immoral. I said, I didn't ask you what you don't need. I asked you what you do need. What is the base of your belief? In other words, you believe that you're not allowed to eat animals. I believe that I am allowed to eat animals. How do you know you're right? How do you know that you're right? So in Kedoshim, we have this idea of Kedusha, right? And most people around the world would translate this word as holy. Well, that's a great translation, but that doesn't help me because all you did was verbalize, translate a Hebrew word into English. What does holy mean? What does it mean? Now, if you would ask a person, in the street, who is a holy person? They might point to someone who's abstaining from everything in this world, not getting married, of course, not having anything to do with the opposite, sex or having children, anything like that. They're not eating, and they're living maybe in a cave, and you're meditating, always in the right? It sounds very, very holy. But that's because people have defined holiness according to what they think is holy. And Judaism does not believe that at all. So I'm just going to go according to a couple of things here. It says the following. When we come into the land of Israel, it says we shouldn't do like the actions, lo tasu like the K'maseret Mitzrayim, like the actions of Mitzrayim, Asher Yashavtem Ba, where we were in Egypt for many years. K'maseret Canaan Asher Ani Mevi Etchem. You should also do like the actions of the Canaanites that you're coming to their land. Lo tasu uvechukotehem lo telechu, and in their laws you shall not go. So it would have been enough to say, don't go in their actions, right? If their actions are immoral, just don't go in their actions. What does that mean? Uvechukotehem lo telechu. Don't go according to their rules. What if they have nice rules? What if they have, rules that make sense? Or comfortable rules, or I don't know what. Why is such a clear cut, don't go after the rules? What is about their rules, the Canaanites or the Egyptians or anyone else that Torah mentions right now, that's so bad? Well, the issue of their rules, it's based on their society. And society's rules change according to what? According to their own comfort level. So again, without going into the depth of what I believe, in 1950, abortion was cold-blooded murder. In 2017, it's pro-choice. It's okay. Now, here's the thing, just an example about abortion. Either you're killing a human, a life, or you're not. Right? I heard this from Mr. Shapiro, I can't remember his first name. If you're killing a life, then you can't do it no matter what. Again, if the woman's in danger, it's a different story. But no matter what, if it's not a life, then you can do it without a problem. It doesn't matter if the woman's in danger or nothing. The question is, what is the base of that decision? Is it a moral decision or is it something else? And so when it comes to the chukoteim of the Canaanites who are here, so those chukot, those laws are based on their culture. And when their culture changes, when their comfort levels change, so will their laws. I mean, it happens all over the world. And again, you cannot judge that society in a godless world. Because in a godless world, the laws of society are only dependent upon the opinions of society and their comfort zone. So who am I to say, if I'm living in Western society, for example, if I'm living in Western and I believe that you can't beat women, okay, and then I go to another society where they believe that you can, I can't judge them. How can I judge them in a godless world? They believe in their morals, I believe in mine. And it'll go even further. I mean, how could we judge, Assad for killing 650,000 people? How can we judge Hitler, may his name be wiped out from history? But how can we judge these people? If in a godless world, every society decides what they want to do, well, what's the problem? And so this is the warning that the Torah gives the nation of Israel when they're coming to the land of Israel. Do not go by their rules. And the issue, again, this has to do with everything in life, with courts. And again, the truth of the matter is Judaism does believe that the general public, the Gentiles of the world, Chachma b'Galim Yesh, there is wisdom there. We're not saying everything's bad, not at all. But when it comes to laws that define morality, that's what we have to be very, very careful not to fall into that trap. And then what does it say here? It goes on and it says, Et mishpatai tasu, the laws, the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, God says to the Bnei Israel, mishpatai, my laws do, vet chukotai tishmu, and my chukim, those guard them, keep them, lalechet behem, go according to them. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am God, again, that same word, Ani Hashem Elokechem. Why does he keep on repeating that? Because that is a source. Because as long, if you wipe out that source of Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am God, your king, or however you want to translate Elokechem, if you wipe out that source, you wipe out the objective source of morality. Again, without judging anyone good or bad, and again, now here's the thing, that doesn't mean that there aren't any moral atheists. No, or kind atheists. That's not what I said. As long as the general morality of the world is in line with the laws of the Torah, everything's wonderful. I'm not talking about religious laws in terms of you have to keep kosher or not. People who are not Jewish are not commanded to do that. I'm talking about laws between man and man. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, adultery. All those things are universal laws. I'm going to read about them in 1 second. And when it comes to those, the Torah takes precedence. It doesn't matter what the world decides that it's okay. It's not. Okay, so that's what it says. It's interesting. The Mishpatim, Rashi, which is a commentator on the Torah, the Gemara as well, the Talmud as well. So it says Mishpatai Tasu, these laws, right? Mishpat in the Hebrew language, Mishpat is literally like law, like you go to court, right? And a chok is a law that we don't so understand. So Rashi says Mishpatai Tasu, my laws, like court of laws, keep. And he says here, Elu dvarim amorim b'Torah b'mishpat. These are things that are said in the Torah by mishpat, like by the court of law, the civil court of law. Why? Even if the Torah didn't mention them, people should have the brains to think, well, you cannot kill. Right? Now, why should people have the brain to think thou shalt not kill? Because socially we want society to exist. So if everyone's killing each other, it won't work. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Society should figure that out. But morally, and this is a scary thought, if I go to someone who does not believe in God and a creator of the world and an objective group of laws of morality, they don't believe in that. And I ask him, why can't I kill someone? Morally, not socially. What's the answer? I like his car, I want to take his car. Why can't I kill him? Yeah, and then they'll say to me, what do you mean? You just can't kill? Just can't kill doesn't work for me. The same way if I say to you, someone who doesn't believe in Torah, you just can't eat a pig. They'll say, why not? I said, you just can't. That won't work for them, right? And so therefore, it's not going to work for me. Why can't I kill? I want the guy's car. Why can't I kill him? On a moral level. So they'll say to you, well, how would you like if someone killed you? Well, that means if I'm the strongest guy in the world and I have a lot of guns, I can kill everyone because they're not going to kill me. In other words, again, that is not a moral reason. That is an egotistical reason. And that would give the person, the fittest survive, that would be the strongest person in the world, ability to kill whoever he wants. Because if I'm just worried about what if someone does it to me, no problem. I'll make sure I have nuclear weapons all over the place and I can kill everyone else because they can't kill me. So that's not a moral reason. So what we're saying here again is the point is, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, follow my laws and my rules, it's not that you're going to get whipped if you don't follow them or lightning is going to come strike down. That's not what Judaism believes at all, or you're going to hell. That's not a Jewish issue. That's not the way the Jews explain it. It's not negative, it's positive. If you don't follow those rules, your moral ladder will turn to a ramp and you'll be sliding down because it's with ice. And it's not because you've been doing it on purpose. People don't want to be evil, they want to be good. So they justify their beliefs, whatever it is. So I just want to go on a couple of other things here. It says, obviously this parsha also talks about the issue of homosexuality, and I want to make something very clear. Someone has desires in life, and everybody's got desires in life. In other words, people have desires sometimes to steal, kleptomaniacs, whatever it is. People have desires. Are the goal, the goal or the point of life, according to Judaism at least, is to make the choice. It's not that life is a bowl of cherries, everything's happy-go-lucky and easy. It's exactly the opposite. Evil, and listen carefully, the existence of evil, according to Judaism, exists in the world so that we can choose good. You can't have the ability to choose good if there's no choice of evil. And therefore, the whole point of life, according to Judaism, is to choose good because we have to be the owners of good. If God forced us to be good, we wouldn't be the owners of good. In order to be the owner, we have to choose it. In order to choose something, I needed the ability to say yes or no. So that means, I'll give you an example. Someone falls in love with a woman, a guy falls in love with a woman, right? And puts a gun to her and says, say you love me or I'll kill you. And she says, I love you. There's no love there. There's no relationship, right? Someone says, well, I love her 100% and she doesn't love me back at all. There's no 50% relationship there. There's zero relationship because the relationship's two sides. So if we don't have choice, if we don't have this idea of choice, there's no relationship. So when it comes to homosexuality, again, there's no really sexual acts, homosexual acts, there's no question in terms of the Torah that it's immoral. Now, does that mean if someone has these desires should be respected, spat on, beat up? Of course not. Absolutely not. Someone has desires to do whatever they desire. They shouldn't be beat up or screamed at or insulted. No. They have a very big challenge ahead of them to try to figure out what to do with their life and not fall into one of the acts which are defined in the Torah as ta'ivah. It depends how you want to translate that. Abomination is translated loosely, but it's only one of the several ones that are really put on a pedestal of evil. So the question is, what does that person do? That person has been given a challenge which is probably terribly difficult. But the goal in life is to face that challenge and still behave in a moral way and act. Now, here's the thing. It says the following. Again, it goes on. All the ta'ivot that the people who were in this land did before you, right? It says they made the land impure, and the land spit them out, because the land of Israel does not take impurity. It's like poison to the land of Israel, so it spits it out. And it says, you should not follow their ways, the land should not spit you out, as you cause it to be impure, the way that the land spit out the non-Jews before you. So, the land of Israel is ours, but it's not ours because, hey, it's ours. Coming to the land of Israel is a responsibility. there's responsibilities, and if one does not uphold those responsibilities, there's a danger of being kicked out. Not me or you individually, the whole nation. So it's not just, again, the army, as someone who's very involved, of course it's utmost important. But there's a moral standard that we need to uphold in order to merit continuing living in this country. Now what's interesting, the Parshat Kedoshim comes in, and the next part is Kedoshim to you, the commandment to be Kadosh. So what is Kadosh? So we know that when a man gets married to a woman, he says to her, Acharei at mikudeshet li. So it certainly doesn't mean you are holy to me. I know what that means. There's no holiness to man or to woman, to each other. I'm not holy to another human being. So what is the word Kedoshim? It means separated for me. A man says to a woman, Acharei at mikudeshet li, you are now separated from all the other men for me. That's not an abusive speech that that just means Miyuchad b'mino, you're special and you're separated from everyone else, and you are now considered, my partner or my wife, whatever it is. Okay? So when it says Kedoshim to you, it's not talking be holy. The command of be holy, what does that mean? It means be separate. What does separate mean? Be separate from the laws of the world which are based on air. Be separate from the laws of the world which are based on a society's comfort level. And again, where things are flipped over, from up to down, right to left, without a blink of the eye. It's not a problem. Again, you have to remember, if we're going to go back to the United States of America, you were allowed to own people, black slaves, and beat them, and there was no rights, and there was no, and it was legal. It doesn't make it moral. The challenge of human beings is to say, okay, I understand the law, but I'm not doing that. Now, you can imagine the people who were against, slavery back then. It was insane. People saying people are against abortion. It's insane. How could you're primitive? What do you mean? It's my man. I bought him. No problem. Of course they would justify it the same way. The question is it moral? Are you killing a human or a life or not? Are you allowed to own a human being or not? That's the question. Everything else doesn't matter. So, Kedoshim means be separate. And come to a level of consciousness of spirituality where you're living in this world not just by the law of the land. Absolutely not. If the law of the land is not moral according to the objective morality, I'm not living by the law of the land. Now, as long as the law of the land is going according to objective morality, of course you have to live by the law of the land. And by the way, if the law of the land for some crazy reason would say, I can't eat meat, okay? There's nothing moral with me eating meat, but I might, if I live in a land that's not mine, I have to follow those laws. I have to follow those laws. That's in terms of, but the idea of Kedoshim, now, you would expect that the Parshat talking about this separation of spirituality, of celestial kind of like living. It would have sacrifices in it. It would be talking about fast days. It would be talking about separating yourselves from society. It would be talking about not eating, maybe, really not eating, not having relations for sure, not with your family, being separate, being like an angel, right? Being a hermit in some kind of, cave and living out there. No communication. I'm only with God. I'm married to God. I don't talk to anyone else. Well, that's very nice and sweet, but again, that's a man-made, made-up idea. And although it might sound wonderful, it's just not what the objective morality is talking about. I'm going to give you the perfect example. Loyalty to your beliefs is not necessarily a good thing unless your belief is based on truth. Let me say that again. Loyalty to your beliefs is not necessarily a good thing unless your belief is based on truth. You want an example? No problem. A radical Muslim terrorist, and again, we're not going into this. Not all Muslims are terrorists. A radical Muslim terrorist who blows up innocent people and screams, God is great while doing so, and believes that he's going to go to heaven for that. Whatever he feels is totally irrelevant on the facts of life. In other words, his belief is not based on truth. He's murdering people, and the fact that he's saying God is great is wonderful. That would be like me saying my father is great and spitting in his face. It doesn't do anything for anyone, certainly not a holy act. So here, when it comes to Kedoshim, right, so the idea is that it's not talking about these out-of-world, out-of-body spiritual experiences. That's what we're talking about here. Listen what it says here. It's unbelievable. We start off, it says, Kedoshim to you, right, be this kind of separation. And then the first thing, Ish imo v'aviv tiro. The first thing that's mentioned is respecting your mother, your father, your mother and your father. That's the first thing that's mentioned. And then next is Shabbat. What's the connection between having, respect for your mother and father in Shabbat. One is between man and one is between man and God. So the connection is it comes from the same source. If you give up on between the man and God, you will give up when it's comfortable between the man and man, because there's no source for it. Let's go on. And then it says you shouldn't go to the other gods and the other, other beliefs. Why? And again, because Ani Hashem Elokeichem, because I am God, you're Elokeichem, you're your ruler, right? And then it goes on to some really odd, secondary sacrifices, which are not one of the burdens. You would think that Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, should be involved here, right? It's not. And then what goes on? Listen to this. It talks about charity. It talks about charity. The next thing that goes on, it talks about charity. It says you shouldn't sell your whole field. You should leave a corner for the poor. If you have a vineyard, you shouldn't take over the grapes that fall. Leave it for the poor. It goes on to you should not steal. You should not deny that you steal. You should not lie to each other. You should not swear in my name in vain. Talking about if you stole something, you shouldn't swear and say that you didn't do it. And then it says, if you do these things, you've cursed the name of God. And we're talking about between man and man. It says you shouldn't, pull a fast one on your friend. You shouldn't jip him off in terms of business. You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't uphold payment to your worker. You shouldn't fool a deaf person or a blind person. Why? Because you should be fearful of God. Not because it's wrong to do. Of course it's wrong to do. But the reason it's wrong is not because society said so. Because when we went back in the times of the Romans and the Greeks, when they had a stadium and tens of thousands, if not more, were watching poor people or crippled people getting ripped apart by lions, and they were cheering there. So it's not a given what we just read. And it doesn't change. It doesn't change. You can't curse, a deaf person out who can't hear you. You can't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person and laugh at him. You can't do that. But not only because it's not right, because it stems from the objective morality, right? And then it goes to the idea of courts. You have to be straight in your court. The people the dayanim, the judges, they have to be honest in their judgments. And again, all this stuff should make sense, and it does make sense. And this is why societies do have it. Right? United States of America has a court. They have a Supreme Court, and they have a whole court system going on. Even Israel does, and it's not a religious court. They have a whole system going on. So it's there. But the question is, what's the source? When it really comes to the Supreme Court, and they have to decide on a civil rights, on a real moral issue, what is their source? Their source today is what society defines as right and wrong. And that's not our source. So it says the following. Okay, so we're going to go on, and it says the following. You ready for this? Keep all my laws and my rules. And the land of Israel that I bring you to will not spit you out. The second time it's said in this parsha. What's going on here? Don't go after the rules of the people that you're taking over. They behaved according to their rules, and it says here that God says I was disgusted with them. Now, what are their rules? Again, this is not their immoral actions. These are rules. So, in my humble opinion, Judaism has a set of rules. Certainly when it comes to war, certainly when it comes to the judicial system. And if we don't have the very clear objective view of moral and immoral, we will slide. We will slide. It's impossible not to. You want the perfect case? Again, I'm not going to right now. I'm just going to give you the example. Elor Azariah. A terrorist came with intent to murder. Now, in terms of Judaism, someone comes to kill you, you have to kill them first. However, when it comes to the land of Israel, there are enemies. And there are rules of laws with enemies. Now, what I want to do and what I don't want to do is totally irrelevant. I'm talking about now a moral level of laws. So 6-7 minutes after, whether he saw the terrorist move or not saw the terrorist move, he shot and killed this terrorist. Now, there's a big uproar in Israel. This guy's sitting in jail for now a year and a half, hopefully get out a little bit earlier. And there was an argument with what he did was right or wrong. Now, legally, it can be said that what he did was wrong. We can't argue with that. The courts, they gave their verdict. And the legal society that we live in, the verdict is given by those courts. So legally, he's in jail. He broke the law. Morally, no. Morally, no. He didn't break any laws, morally. But again, legally he did. He's in jail now for it. But morally not. So let's just go on one more second. Therefore, it says, don't go after their laws. Their laws they're not moral. Again, to keep terrorists who are terrorists by ideology alive, you're not being kind. You're not being compassionate. You're being actually cruel. And there's a sentence in here, we say in Judaism, someone who has compassion on evil people, will eventually be evil to those who deserve compassion. And you want a hardcore example? I'll give you a hardcore example. Yoshua Friedberg, my friend, was murdered. They caught the terrorists. They all put in jail. They were all let out of jail. Why? Because you had Gilad Shalit out of jail. Now, I'm very happy Gilad Shalit is home. But it was an emotional decision. And the terrorists who were let out of jail, who murdered my friend, murdered again. So again, you cannot go after your emotions. I'm not belittling their emotion, the Shalit family. I'm very happy he's home. I'm not belittling their feelings the same way I'm not belittling feelings of anyone who has a problem or an issue. This has nothing to do with me treating or reacting to those people. It has to do with objective morality. And it's not always black and white. But in terms of that issue, for instance, letting up terrorists, it's pretty black and white. It's very, very simple. In Judaism, it says you do not go and get people out of captivity if the price will cost more lives. Period, end of story. Is it emotionally easy to do? Of course not. Of course not. I just want to go on to a couple of things. Now look, so when we talk about Kedoshim, we see that we're not talking about these celestial issues of you have to be holier than thou. Sorry about that. You have to be holier than thou, live in a cave. No! The Torah says, V'chai b'hem. You must live by them. You must live by the laws. Live, not die. Live. Our whole goal in Judaism is to live according to a certain level of spirituality defined by only one objective source. Now, any bright ideas and wonderful ideas you might have about spirituality that are not sourced in that objective source are fake. You might feel very good about them, but that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Feeling does not define morality. And if it did, we'd be in big trouble because everyone's personal opinions and feelings are different. And the second someone would act based on their feeling, that is barbaric. That's what an animal does. An animal sees another animal with food, it kills the animal and takes the food. No problem. Not a problem. There's no consequence for animals. For humans, there's consequence. So feelings are very, very important, but they're important to use your feelings to boost morality rather than strip it and actually boost immorality. And that is a command of Kedoshim to you. Be separate to be able to accept these rules that are defined by an objective source, and don't fall into the trap of accepting laws based on a society which in essence is based on nothing but their own comfort. All right, people, that's it. I just want to remind everyone a couple of things. Number one, please share the video. Number two, hit the link. I'm going to put it in again, the link for the coffee campaign for soldiers. We're bringing refreshments out to IDF soldiers all over the country. The link is right over there. Boom. That's number two. And number three, I'm reminding everyone, in mid-June, I'm coming to North America on a speaking tour about Israel, as well as a fundraising tour about and for the IDF. I'm asking everyone out there who's listening to this small Dvar Torah, let's get your communities involved. I'll help you out with that. Send me a private message. Tell me where you are, and we'll get it started. We'll get your community active. Signing off, wishing everyone a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom from the beautiful rolling hills of Judea, Israel. Shabbat Shalom.